Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today, as I'm recording this video, it's currently the 4-year anniversary of one of the best days of my entire life as a Thunder fan. Because 4 years ago on this date, we traded Paul George to the Los Angeles Clippers in exchange for a record haul of assets in return. We got Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, $1 billion first-round picks and pick swaps. It was record-setting, and still to this day, it's one of the biggest deals that we've ever seen. It really shifted the landscape of the entire Western Conference and NBA as a whole. It gave the Clippers their best opportunity probably in franchise history to win a title. It signaled the beginning of a rebuild for the Oklahoma City Thunder, really the first time that had happened since the franchise moved from Seattle. It was a momentous occasion, and with this trade involving so many draft assets, it began a new era where seeing 3, 4, 5 first-round picks involved in a deal really isn't that surprising anymore. As with all deals, people are continuously debating who won this trade, to what extent they won this trade, and I really think it's going to be hard to tell exactly what the impact on both franchises of this trade is until we get through all the draft capital that the Thunder got, until Paul George wraps his career up in Los Angeles. So I'm not here to really grade this trade and tell you that the Thunder absolutely fleeced the Clippers, even though I do think we're pretty clearly big winners regardless of what happens with Los Angeles with Paul George over there. But instead, I want to talk a little bit about the lineage of this trade, because obviously it's a big deal. But we can go back really far to a single second-round pick traded back in 2007 when the Thunder were still the Seattle Supersonics that caused a crazy, maybe the craziest butterfly effect in NBA history that led to this trade happening, to the Thunder having this incredible young core that they have right now, to the Clippers getting Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. It all began with a single second-round pick back in 2007. 16 years ago, on July 20th of that year, the Phoenix Suns were looking for some salary cap relief at that point because they were dealing with a lot of big contracts. So they decided to make a salary dump trade with the Seattle Supersonics, trading their 2008 first-round pick, Kurt Thomas, who was making a bunch of money, and a 2010 first-round pick over to the Sonics in exchange for a single 2009 second-round pick for that salary cap relief and an $8 million trade exception, which at that point was pretty substantial. Now, that second-round pick that the Sonics ended up trading the Suns became Amir Prelzic, who never ended up playing in the NBA, so it really doesn't mean that much in general. It's kind of just a wasted pick, and right off the bat, when you have to trade 2 first-round picks to get salary relief, it's never a great trade for you if you're Phoenix in this scenario. But things get way crazier as we continue to go down this trade tree. First, let's talk about the threads that don't go too far. Kurt Thomas would only play half a year in Seattle before being traded to San Antonio for Brent Barry, Francisco Elson, and a 2009 first-round pick that the Sonics, or Thunder at that point, used on Rodrigue Beaubois. Brent Barry was waived pretty much immediately out of that deal. Francisco Elson would just walk in free agency the following season, and Beaubois was traded in 2009 with a second-round pick for Byron Mullins, who was then traded for a 2013 second-round pick, which got the Thunder Alex Abrines, who was actually a pretty fun role player for the Thunder for a few seasons before he ended up leaving the NBA. But that's the end of that line with Kurt Thomas. Instead, let's go ahead and talk about that 2010 first-round pick, which was used on Quincy Pondexter. Now, this line doesn't go too far either. He ended up getting the Thunder through multiple trades that expanded, a couple of interesting role players like Cole Aldrich and Nazir Muhammad, but ultimately that path, again, just doesn't go too far, other than the fact that Cole Aldrich was involved in the Thunder trading James Harden away, which is not something we need to get into, although I'm looking to make more videos about some interesting trades. So if you want me to talk all about the history of the James Harden trade and break my heart all over again, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. So Kurt Thomas and that 2010 first-round pick didn't end up becoming too much, but that 2008 first-round pick, the third and final asset in that trade, is where we really begin this entire lineage. That 2008 first-round pick ended up being used to select Serge Ibaka for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he was great in his time as a member of this franchise. A lot of people, especially if you started watching basketball more recently, you probably don't know just how good Serge Ibaka was. For a few seasons, he was one of the best rim protectors and overall defenders in the entire league. He helped to make a finals run in one of his first seasons there. He racked up 5 seasons with 2+ blocks per game. He made 3 all-defensive teams and finished top 3 in DPOY voting multiple times. He was absolutely incredible, and again, I think a lot of people underrate how good he was for a few seasons over there in Oklahoma City. He was legitimately one of the most important players in that Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook era. But while he was impressive, after the Thunder lost in 2016 to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, the front office felt like there was probably definitely a need for a change, and there were some signs of Serge Ibaka regressing. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't quite as good as he had been over the past few seasons. So ultimately the Thunder decided to move on from Serge Ibaka on draft night, trading him to the Orlando Magic, who were looking for a bit of a talent boost alongside their young core, and they were willing to give up Victor Oladipo, who was a really young, interesting guard over there, who had never quite found his footing, as well as the draft rights to Domantas Sabonis, a first-year big man coming over to OKC, and Ersan Ilyasova. For the Magic, this Ibaka experiment did not go very well. He played well overall, but the Magic were terrible even with Serge, and they ended up trading him over to the Toronto Raptors mid-season for a trade package including Terrence Ross and a 2017 first-round pick, so giving up 2 future All-Stars in Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis for half a year Serge Ibaka is kind of a disaster for Orlando, but that's kind of the end of their involvement in this whole scenario. Meanwhile, Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis were heading to Oklahoma City to try and breathe some youth and new life into that franchise. Now, unfortunately, right as they got there, Kevin Durant left for the Golden State Warriors, so the Thunder were in a bit of a weird spot, but that was the year that Russell Westbrook won MVP. It was one of my favorite seasons watching an individual player of all time. I made a full video talking about that last summer, so if you want to go watch that, I'll try and put it in the comment section below. There's a good chance that I forget. Just look up Russell Westbrook MVP on my channel, and you'll most likely find it. But yeah, both those guys were part of that Russell Westbrook MVP team. Victor Oladipo averaged 16 points per game in that season. He wasn't phenomenal, but again, he was a young player, and it was also a weird season where the supporting cast overall just wasn't very good. He was our second leading scorer, so he was important, but overall nothing too crazy for Oklahoma City. Also, Sabonis did not have the best rookie season. He averages 6 points per game and just about 3.5 boards, but at the same time, the roster was a really weird fit for him. He was more of a playmaking inside big, and we were using him as a spot-up guy in the perimeter because we desperately needed any form of shooting around Russell Westbrook, which is something we didn't have the entire season, so we tried to put him in that role. It didn't really work, and overall, both of them had okay seasons in Oklahoma City, but they would really thrive in their next destination. Maybe if we kept them, they would have had similar success as members of the Thunder, but we'll never know because in that following offseason, after their 1 year with the franchise, they were sent over to Indiana in exchange for Paul George, who came to the Thunder alongside Carmelo Anthony in that offseason to form a new big three of sorts between Russ, Melo, and PG-13. Now, the big three did not end up working out because Melo was not great in his one season as a member of the franchise, but Paul George was great in his time as an Oklahoma City Thunder member. But first, let's quickly talk about what Depot and Domantas Sabonis did as Pacers. Obviously, they were both all-star caliber guys for a few seasons over there for that franchise. Depot was an all-NBA and all-defensive guy before injuries really derailed his career. I mean, he was special in 2017-18. In fact, I kind of want to make a full video talking about Victor Oladipo in that year, something I think I already mentioned wanting to do on this channel in a couple of videos already. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to go ahead and talk about him. Meanwhile, Sabonis was also an all-star caliber player before he was eventually traded to the Sacramento Kings a couple of years ago at this point in exchange for Tyrese Halliburton, and that's been one of the biggest win-win trades that we've seen in quite some time. Tyrese has blossomed into a young all-star over there in Indiana who just got a max contract extension very deservingly, while Domantas Sabonis was a big piece of the Sacramento Kings, making the playoffs for the first time in 16 seasons and becoming an all-NBA caliber player in the process. But flashing back to the main timeline in Oklahoma City, while the playoff success really wasn't there individually, Paul George was fantastic in his time as a member of the Thunder. His first season, he was pretty good. In 2018, he was one of the best two-way players in the entire league, finishing top 3 in both MVP and Defensive Player of the Year voting. I don't think people remember just how special he was in that season, and the Thunder looked like they had potential to make a kind of run until Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers came along in the first round, and the Thunder ended up falling short. Overall, it was really fun having Paul George in town, but after we lost to Portland, it definitely felt like this duo of Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and the supporting cast around them had kind of reached their limit, and it might be time to head towards that rebuild. So of course, this is where the big deal ends up happening. Paul George had signed a new contract with the Thunder just an offseason ago, but he had kind of decided that he didn't really want to be there for the foreseeable future and very privately requested a trade or made it be known that, hey, I probably want to go ahead and move on to my next destination, which the front office agreed with. They also agreed that, hey, it's probably time to go ahead and start a rebuild, meaning the end of not just his tenure over there in Oklahoma City, but also the tenure of the best player in franchise history, Russell Westbrook. And we would trade Russ for Chris Paul and 4 first-round picks, which, include picks swaps from the Houston Rockets, which that's a crazy deal in and of itself, which could play a big impact in this upcoming draft, where the Thunder have the Rockets pick top 4 protected in 2024, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. But obviously the PG trade to the Clippers is the one that we want to focus on here, and it's a ridiculous trade. Now, I think a lot of people have to consider the fact that the Clippers had to get Paul George if they wanted to get Kawhi Leonard, who's just coming off one of the most impressive title runs that really we've ever seen with Toronto. He was an absolute monster. I've also made a full video on that 2019 Kawhi run if you want to go check that out on my channel too. Again, I'll try to link it in the description, but there's a good chance that I forget. So they wanted to bring Kawhi Leonard in. He said, hey, I'll only come to the Clippers if you get Paul George. So the Thunder had a lot of leverage. They also reportedly used the Raptors as leverage as well. So the Clippers' hand was kind of forced, and they had to give up $1 billion assets. In total, for just Paul George, the Thunder received Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, the Clippers' 2022, 2024, and 2026 first-round picks, the Heat's 2021 first-round pick, the Heat's 2023 first-round pick lottery protected, and the rights to swap picks with the Clippers in 2023 and 2025. As I mentioned earlier, it set a record for the most draft assets ever involved in a deal, while also bringing in Danilo Gallinari, who had a great season with the Thunder in 2020, where they shocked the world, made the playoffs, and pushed the Rockets to 7 games. One of my favorite seasons ever as a Thunder fan, as well as, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Since getting to Oklahoma City, SJ has established himself as one of the best young players in this entire league. This past season, making his first All-Star game, making All-NBA first team, and averaging over 30 points per game at just the age of 24 years old. He finished top 5 in MVP voting. He's still seemingly got so much potential, and he's already the face of the Thunder. He seems like he could be a future MVP, and already he's a perennial All-Star and All-NBA threat. If the Thunder just got Shai in this deal, it would have been a big win. If it was a straight-up swap Paul George for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder come out of this extremely happy, getting the best player at this point in that deal. But they also got $1 billion first-round picks. So what have those picks turned into? Now, because of one of the Heat picks being pushed back to 2025 and a lot of the Clippers picks being in these next few years, the Thunder have really only gotten 2 players out of this trade so far. And the first one of those players is Tre Mann, who's been a bit up and down in his first couple of seasons in the NBA. He had a great rookie campaign. His sophomore one was kind of a miss. He just really couldn't seem to find his shot. But I will say that right now, as I'm recording this video, he's killing it in the Summer League, so maybe year 3 is his breakout season. At the very least, he still is an interesting young prospect. But the second pick that the Thunder got, which was the Clippers' 2022 first-round pick that landed at pick 12 after LA missed the playoffs, resulted in OKC getting Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. He just finished second in Rookie of the Year voting, rapidly improved over the course of the season, and if you've watched any of my Thunder videos on this channel, you'll know that I think he's a future All-Star in this league, or at least he has that upside, the defensive versatility, the offensive versatility. He looks like a mini Shai out there at some point. The rapid rate at which he improved over the course of the season, just in his first year, it's unbelievable. J-Dub is one of my favorite players in this entire league. Again, I think he is a real All-Star level talent in a few seasons. So not only did they get Shai, who is already All-NBA and All-Star, the face of the franchise, they also got Tre Mann, who's interesting, and Jalen Williams, who I think could be one of the core pieces of this team when they're competing for a championship. Not to mention, again, that the Thunder still have several picks and pick swaps to use over the course of the next few seasons. And those will likely come in while this Thunder core is trying to compete for a championship, because a few of those are in like 3-4 years, when the Thunder just barely missed the playoffs this season, and the young core is improving at a rapid rate. They're adding Chet Holmgren this upcoming season. We again have Shai, we've got Jada, we've got Josh Giddey, a bunch of other interesting young players on the roster. Like, this Thunder team is going to be one of the scarier squads in the Western Conference sooner than later, and there still are multiple first-round picks and pick swaps that are coming down the pipeline. And these picks could potentially be really valuable, because the Clippers' 2 stars, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, are both heading towards their mid-30s. They've both been injury-prone over the past few seasons, and they also both have player options on their contracts following this season. So there's a real chance that they can both be free agents in this upcoming offseason, and maybe if one or both of them walk, the Clippers are going to be in a really bad spot. So maybe those picks that the Thunder get are in the lottery, or at least right there on the edge of the lottery and the playoff teams. So those could be incredibly valuable, whether the Thunder want to continuously add young talent to the core or just trade them for great championship contending pieces. Meanwhile, the Clippers are still trying to compete with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. They got to a Western Conference Finals, the first one in franchise history. They're right now trying to trade for James Harden from the Philadelphia 76ers, giving the Clippers a big three of him, PG, and Kawhi. And I do still think if they can stay healthy, there's a chance the Clippers could win a title. It's just a matter of the health actually coming into play. So the Clippers are trying to compete for a title. The Thunder have one of the best young cores in the league while also having a war chest of assets. It's a trade that has defined the past few years of the Western Conference while also having a massive impact on the next few seasons and even beyond as the Thunder work back towards championship contention. It is one of the most consequential trades that we have ever seen. And again, it's even crazier when you consider where we began, because at the beginning of this video, it started back in 2007 with a single second-round pick. That single second-round selection that the Sonics traded away got them Serge Ibaka, who they then dealt to the Magic for Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, who they then dealt to the Pacers for Paul George, who they then dealt for Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, Trey Mann, Jalen Williams, 3 more first-round picks, and the right to swap picks with the Clippers in 2025. That's all coming from a single second-round pick that was traded back in 2007 when they weren't even the same team. To me, it's so mind-blowing how one seemingly inconsequential deal 16 years ago at this point could define an entire era of Western Conference basketball. It's really ridiculous how far back this goes and how wild it gets as you continue to just unfold the layers that are involved. To me, it's the most incredibly interesting thing. I love looking back on trades like this. I want to do more videos like this. And I wanted to start off by talking about a trade that impacts my favorite franchise in such a big way. Again, it's the anniversary. And I really think it's just wild to think about how this front office has turned that second round pick into basically the entire core that they have right now as they're trying to compete for a championship within the next few seasons. So yeah, with all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Go ahead and comment down below your thoughts on the Gilgeous-Alexander trade. What do you think about this crazy lineage involved with everything? Are there any other trades that you want to see me break down, whether it's a trade tree or just one deal in particular, and go through the other effects and layers involved with that one deal that people might not expect when looking at it on the surface? Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. I said this in my last couple videos, but as you're seeing this, I'm in Vegas for Summer League, so the videos might not be as frequent on the channel over the next few days. I might do a vlog. I definitely want to do one talking about Victor Wembanyama's debut in Summer League because I'm going to be there at it, so I want to talk about the experience of being there in person and what he does. So there will almost certainly be a video about that over the course of this weekend, but in general, just in case you don't see videos as much, that's what's going on at the moment. So yeah, and also if any of you are at Summer League and you see me, stop me, say hi. I'd love to go ahead and talk with some of y'all, so let me know down in the comments on that too. But yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.